Hey everyone, welcome to the next video in this Blender beginners tutorial series where we model this isometric scene in Blender. So if you haven't watched the previous video, make sure to check that out. I'll link it in the description. Now let's continue where we left off in the last video. Now let's create a coffee mug and let's place it on the table. Press Shift A and go to Mesh. Let's add a cylinder. Let's give it about 22 vertices. Press / to enter the local space and tab into edit mode. Let's press Ctrl R to add a loop cut in the middle and press Ctrl B to bevel this. Let's stop right there. Now let's select this edge loop by holding your Alt and clicking here. Now hold your Shift and the Alt key and select this edge loop. Press Ctrl B to bevel. Okay, let's stop right there. So make sure that you have a flat face facing the x-axis like this. So like this one, not any kind of crisscross, so that's really important. Now let's press 3 to enter the face mode. Let's select these two faces, press E to extrude it out slightly. Now right click and choose bridge faces, so this will connect these two faces. Let's come down to the operator panel down here and let's increase the number of cuts to number 5, so this will create a nice handle for our mug. So also please take note of other settings. So in case if you have a different value, connect loop is set to open loop and merge factor is 0, twist is 0. So in case if you have a twist, it might have something like this. So make sure that twist is 0 and the smoothness affects how bendy your handle should be. So by default it is set to 1, the profile factor is 0, and this is the profile shape. So in case if you want to change the profile, so press tab to enter the object mode and press Ctrl 2 to add a subdivision surface modifier and right click and shade smooth. Now let's enter the edit mode once again. Now let's select this face and this face. Press I to insert it twice like this. Now select this face and press E to extrude slightly in and press E to extrude it in all the way. I'm going to enter the X-ray mode by pressing Alt Z to see through the object. So let's press G and Z to push it down way over here. Let's insert this face a couple of times by pressing I twice. So this will create a really nice inside of the cup. So if I turn on the cage, you can see it a bit more clearly. So it looks good. Maybe we can add a supporting edge loop over here running through this handle to create a bit more flatter shape for the handle. And press Ctrl B to bevel this slightly. I think everything looks good. Maybe we can add an edge loop down here. Another one up here. Okay, everything's perfect. Now let's press 3 to enter the face mode. Select this face. Press Ctrl plus. So this will do an incremental selection. Press Shift D to create a duplicate. Switch to the edge mode by pressing 2 and hold your Alt key and click here to select this edge and press F to fill this and press I once and I twice to create the coffee. I'm just slightly scaling this out a little bit. Okay, it looks good. Maybe the coffee is a bit too much. So I'm just made some incremental selections and press G and Z and pushing it down a little bit. Okay, much better now. So / to exit the local space, and I'm going to press 1 to enter the front view, place it over the table and scale it down. Let's go a bit of a stylized proportion and let's give it a bit chunkier coffee cup. Let's select this table portion, press Shift D to create a duplicate and press Z to move this in the Z axis. I'm going to scale this down to create the coaster for the coffee mug, slightly moving it in the X axis. Okay, let's move the coffee cup in the Y axis. Maybe we can use the align object function. So this will perfectly align these two objects. Maybe I have successfully scaled this down. Press Ctrl A. Let's apply the scale and rotation. Let's do the same for this one. And let's quickly rotate the cup towards the sofa. So that way it makes sense the reader might take the coffee mug from this direction. So now let's press Shift A, go to the meta ball, and let's add a meta ball. So this is a different kind of mesh. It doesn't really work like normal geometry. You will see shortly what I mean. So I'm going to scale this down using S, and I'm going to use this to create some kind of a stylized water vapor coming from the coffee. Press Shift D to create a duplicate. Now you can see what I meant why I say it is not normal geometry. So it's kind of slimy kind of mesh. So let's scale this down a little bit. Press Shift D to create a duplicate, and let's scale this down. Let's select these two and slightly move this in the y-axis, and let's select all these three and move it above the coffee cup like this. Okay, that's enough for the smoke or water vapor, whatever it is. Now let's create a lamp to place it beside the couch. So press Shift A, go to mesh, add a blender. I think 22 vertices seems good. So press / to enter the local space, tab into edit mode, select this upper face, press S to scale it down. Let's bring it down a little bit using the G and Z. Now let's select this face, press I to insert, and press E and extrude it in, and let's scale it down. Okay, press / to exit the local space, and let's place it over here, and let's scale it down even more. Can scale these one a little bit outside. Okay, good. Now let's select, press Ctrl L, and let's copy the modifiers. So this will add a really nice bevel to this lamp shade, and let's press Ctrl 2 to add a subdivision on top of that, and let's shade smooth. Now let's move it over here. Select this inner face, press Shift D to create a duplicate of this, and press G and Z to move it down. Maybe we can scale this in a little bit, and let's press E to extrude it out to create the pole. I'm going to press pivot key on my numpad to close it in. Press G and Z right there. Press E to extrude, right click to keep it in place, and S to scale about there. Now press G and Z to push it down. Select this edge loop, press G twice to move it above like this, and press Ctrl B to give a nice bevel, and scroll mouse once to give a, maybe we can add a loop cut and slightly bring it down. Maybe we can afford to scale this out even more. Okay, it looks good. Maybe add another look at and press G and Z. Okay, that looks fine. No more changes. So press Ctrl plus and select this pole, and press P and choose selection to make this into a separate object. Now to be too high, so I'm going to drop this down a little bit. Okay, that seems fine. Maybe we can drop this even more. Okay, don't drop this even more so that it's protruding out. So in case if it does, quickly select this and bring it down and set the origin to geometry. Not that it doesn't make any changes for us, but just in case. Now let's create a wooden drawer and keep it here. Press Shift A, go to mesh, let's add a cube. Let's copy the bevel modifier from this window using Ctrl L and enter the edit mode, and entering the local space, press S and X to scale it in the X-axis like this and slightly scale it in the Y-axis. Now let's add a loop cut in the middle. Press Ctrl R and left click twice. Now press 3 to enter the face mode and select these two faces. I'm going to press I to create a inset like this. Now press Shift D to create a duplicate and press E to extrude it out to create the doors of this wooden drawer. I'm going to separate this one out from this mesh, like shade auto smooth. Okay, that looks good. Maybe we can select this face, press Shift S and choose cursor to selector to place the 3D cursor on this face, and exit the edit mode, press Shift A, go to mesh, let's add a UV sphere. Let's change the segments to 16 and rings to 8, and press Ctrl 2 to add a subdivision surface, and press RY90 to rotate this in the 90 degrees in Y-axis so that this pointy points in the X-axis. So press S and scale it down a little bit. Okay, maybe we can select just these faces and press F to fill this in, and press E to extrude it out like this. Now press A to select everything, press G and X to move it out like this. Let's add a loop cut down here. Okay, let's shade auto smooth. Let's just quickly select everything and press S and Z to slightly scale it down in the Z axis. Let's press Ctrl A and apply the scale, and press G and Z to move it above like this. Press Shift D and Z to move it down to create another knob. So right now you see we need to fortify these edges. So let's select all these, press I once and I twice. So we also have to do what we did for this object to this knob. So instead of doing that, you can select this knob first and hold your Shift key and select this one and press Ctrl L and choose link object data. So this will create an instance of this object and replace that one. Okay, so any changes that we did to any of these objects in the edit mode will also reflect in the other object. So it is basically a clone of this object. So it is really handy in case if you are duplicating too many objects to scatter around the scene. So you can use link object data like this, or you can just create a linked duplicate using Alt D to create a linked duplicate. This works exactly like what I did just before. Select everything and finally shift select the body to make it into an active object, and press Ctrl P and choose object to parent every other object to this body. So what this do is this will parent all these tiny parts to this main body. So whenever you select this main body and press G to move it out, so all these little elements will also follow this. So this is really handy. It doesn't fit for these objects, so you can move these objects independently. So just in case if you want to move this whole, you can do this. This also applies for the scaling or rotation. So now let's press / to exit the local space and press S to scale it down, and let's press G and move it over here, and let's press T and Z to move it above. Maybe we can scale this a little bit more. Okay, let's move this in the X-axis a little bit and slightly in the Z-axis. Now we need some legs for this wooden drawer, so let's borrow some legs from the footrest. So let's quickly select this edge, press Shift D and let's place it over here, right there. Maybe we can scale this one down a little bit for this. make sure that you are placing it right above the floor. Press 7 to enter the top view, and press G and X, and let's place it right. Now let's choose the mirror object. This will nicely mirror all these legs. I think it looks good. Maybe we can bring these guys a little bit further in the x-axis. Now let's create some photo frames to slap it on the walls. Press Shift A, go to Mesh. Let's add a line. /2, enter the local space. Tab to enter edit mode, and press S and X to scale it in the x-axis. Now press E to extrude it out. Bring this a little bit further, and press I to insert about there. Press E to extrude in, and let's stop right there. Now press /2, exit the local space. Press R X 90. And press R Z 90. So now let's move it over here. Press S to scale it in a little bit more. Let's apply the scale. Now let's move this in the x-axis using G and the X, and let's borrow the bevel modifier from the window by pressing Ctrl L and choosing copy modifiers. So right now this object is too small for this bevel amount, so we can decrease the bevel amount to fit this. Hit auto smooth. We are good. Press tab to enter edit mode, and press I to create a nice inset like this. So we will apply a different material for this one to indicate a picture in the photo frame. Press A to select everything. Press Shift D and Z to move it down, and Alt Z to enter the X-ray view. 1 for vertex mode, and select all these bottom vertices. Press G and Z to move it up like this. So don't just scale these in any axis, so it's kind of stretching it, not actually scaling it. So make sure whenever you do this kind of stuffs, you just select one side of vertices and move them around like this to create a really nice proportion for the frame. Now press Ctrl plus and P and choose selection to make it into a separate object. Exit the edit mode. Let's set the origin into geometry. Maybe these photo frames are a little bit too thin. Let's enter the edit mode once more. Select all these faces. Hold your Shift and Alt key and click over here. So after selecting these two face loops, so go to the transform pivot point over here, and let's choose individual origins, and this will allow us to scale these with an individual pivot point. What I mean by that is, if you scale this in, you can see it is scaling individually. So previously it was scaling like this with an average median point. So I'm going to change this into individual origins and press yes and Y first to scale slightly in the y-axis. Now press S and Z to slightly scale this in the z-axis. So this has given us a really nice thickness for our photo frames. Let's change this back to median point. Let's set the origin to geometry. Let's create a wooden shelf and place it beside the window. So we can use the wooden drawer for that. Press Shift D to create a duplicate. Press Z to move it above in the z-axis. 3 for side view, and let's place it roughly over here. And let's scale it in the z-axis slightly and slightly in the y-axis. Slightly move it in the y-axis. Okay, that seems good. Now make sure that it isn't above or so much below the window alignment. Make this to align perfectly in the z-axis. Maybe we can push this in the x-axis and flush it against the walls like that. Let's apply scale. Now enter the edit mode. Press Ctrl R and 2 to create 2 loop cuts. Press 3 to enter face mode. Select all these 3 faces. Press I to insert. I again to create individual insets like this. Now press E to extrude it in like that. Let's stop right there. We got ourselves a nice shelf. Now let's create some books. Press Shift A, go to Mesh, let's add a cube. /2, enter the local space. Tab into edit mode. Scale this in the Z axis. Scale this in the Y axis. And scale this in the Z axis again. Now let's select these 3 faces. Why my screencast keys is turned off? Sorry for that. I think after the crash, I forgot to turn on the screencast keys. Hopefully that didn't trouble you much. So back to the modeling. Now press I to insert. Now I want this to happen without the boundaries. So press I again to create a whole kind of insert. Now press Alt E and choose extrude faces along the normals. So normals are these kind of small lines. So normals decides which side our face is facing. So it's kind of a different topic, too much to digest for the beginners. Let's not go into that. So let's just stick with the basics. Make sure to check offset even, 3 for side view and 1 for vertex mode. And let's Alt Z and enter the X-ray mode. Press G and Z and Y, and slightly move this to create a bit more depth for the binding. Now let's add a bevel modifier and let's give it about 3 segments, and let's decrease the bevel amount. Let's shade auto smooth, shading auto normals to fix the shading issue. Now tab into edit mode. Let's add a lookup over here. Let's just select these 2 and press G and Y and slightly move it in the Y axis like this. Now enter the X-ray mode and select these vertices as well, and press Ctrl B and create a nice bevel like this. So make sure that you have 5 segments to create a nice curvy binding like this. Okay, that looks good. Maybe we can scale this down a little bit more. /2, enter the workspace, and I'm going to move this into the wooden shelf. So to work more freely, let's select these 2 and /2, enter the local space. RY90 and RZ90. Let's try to fit these inside the shelves. Slightly scale it in the Y axis to create a bit chunkier book, and let's place it here. Okay, that looks good. Alt D to create a link duplicate, and press Y to move it in the Y axis like this, and press Shift R a couple of times to repeat this action. Press Alt D and Z and move it above like this to create the top shelf. Maybe we can fill the bottom shelf, and let's leave the top shelf for something else, some kind of decor or something. I think the looks a bit higher, so I'm going to drop the size a little bit. Okay, press Alt D again, press Shift R, press Shift R one more. Now let's slightly rotate this in the X-axis and move slightly in the Y-axis like this. Looks good. Press /2. Exit the local space. Let's press Alt D and X and press Alt R to reset the rotation, and press G and move it over here. Let's scale this book slightly just for a bit of visual interest, and let's rotate this like this. Now for a little bit more visual interest, press tab to enter the edit mode. Select this face, press Shift D to create a duplicate. These are linked duplicates, so we need to separate this object so that it doesn't reflect on these other objects. So let's select this duplicated plane, tab into edit mode. Let's A to select everything, press S to scale it in like this. You see, these are the local axes for this object. So press S and X twice will activate the local x-axis, and X and Y twice to activate the local y-axis, and scale right about there, and press E to extrude it out. And let's add a look at in the middle, and let's grab these two edges and press G and X twice and move it in the x-axis like this. So this is kind of a bookmark kind of thing. And let's move this inside the book slightly using local x-axis. So if I turn on the gizmo, you can see this is the global axis, and if I go to the local, you can see this is the local axis. Once I apply the rotation, the local axis will turn into the global axis. So local axis only works whenever you haven't applied the rotation values. Okay guys, that's it for this video. Let's continue the rest in the next part. Make sure to get to this point and don't skip anything. In case if you have any doubts, please leave them in the comment section down below, and I'll do my best to answer them. And if you find this tutorial useful, please like this video and subscribe to this channel for more future contents, and hit the bell icon to get notified instantly when I release them. So that will be for this video. I'll see you on the next one. Take care. Bye bye.